Finally, you're here. It feels like I've been waiting forever. No, I know it's not your fault. It's just as today I'm feeling so blah. As you can see, I haven't even managed to get myself out of bed today. That's why I summoned you to my chambers. Well, I'm glad you asked. I have told you anyway, of course, but still. Well, it's all thanks to the common rebel. They've been making things ever so difficult for me, my little helper. It's all the same things as usual, really. Rebels, petitions, general rebel rousing, but lately it's been happening more and more often. All across my empire. The commoners are banding together and causing all sorts of mischief. It will make everything more difficult. But it's been especially hard on trade routes. I have to wait 3 extra days for my new silk ships to arrive. 3! And don't even get me started on all the horrible things they say. If you think evilqueen is bad, then you don't know the half of what those dreadful plebeians are capable of digging up. It's thought all the time they could be spending on serving me and being productive. They're putting towards nesting filth and rebellion thought instead. Well, you're here to listen to me for the most part. It's not fun complaining to myself. If you need an official reason, then I suppose you could be here to advise me on how to manage this outburst from the masses. I don't really think I need that, though. It's all the fault for being so terrible. I'm just doing my best. And what I meant, then, why don't we enjoy some treats? I need comfort food. But even there, my problems haunt me. All those rebellious separatists meant least options for me. Some of the basics are getting to be so hard to come by. All commit genocide for something deep fried. But we're so low on oil that we have to conserve most of it for keeping labs lit. Right on time. It's a bit meager, but I have the kitchen prepared some tentacle tarts and tea cakes. With tea natural, although it has to be herbal, and it's got a snack as this is. It's still struggling a bit of ingredients. If this goes on, I may have to resort to, I don't know, sandwiches or something. Is that what commoners eat? Regardless, I hope you enjoy them. Why do I think they're upset? Honestly, I think they're just incapable of appreciating what they have. Always wanting more and more and more. You're a little bit like them. You know? I see the sore faces you pull when you think I'm not looking. You're very lucky, you know? You get to live in this castle, eat this food, and be in my presence regularly. And yet, you seem to still be testy about little trifles. Like how you didn't get a choice. I mean, why should anybody be upset about having a good life? Just because it's not the one they choose? You're certainly better than the rest of them, though. At least, know how to hold your tongue. Most of the time, at least. The rest of them are able to say whatever they want, not even bothering to show an ounce of respect. Well, if you mean what they claim is the problem, well, all sort of things. I raised taxes quite a bit recently, with all the worry about a new alliance. I've been increasing fortifications along the border to make sure they aren't tempted to make a grab at any of the Empire's land. Not to mention, I'm having a secondary city built that I can retreat to if things ever get dicey. And that's certainly not cheap. Aside from that, they've been pretty outspoken about how many crimes are punishable by execution. That one I can't even begin to understand. I mean, what's the problem? If you're not a criminal, you have nothing to fear. If anything, I should be holding more executions to get rid of more criminals. But these things pass with time. It's hardly the first time I have to deal with the masses and their revolts. I have some things in the works. Take care of it. Oh well, that's unusual. And just a moment ago I praised you for knowing to keep your mouth shut about the things you disagree with. So you think I'm an awful ruler, do you? Perhaps it's the fact that I've become so desensitive to insults recently, but I don't even mind that you say that. It's just funny to me. I mean, what do you know about ruling an empire? Do you think you could do a better job? Well, you might find that it will be harder than you think. I'm sure in your head you imagine that you could just send up all the taxes, convince every prisoner to become a law-abiding citizen, and give every person in the empire every single thing they wanted. You remind me of my father in that respect. Have I told you about him? I'm sure I haven't. I don't tend to talk about him much. Well, before I was the ruler of the great Abyssal Empire, I was princess of the small kingdom of Bulgaria. My father was king, and he was an endless optimistic and generous man. He loved every single citizen and believed it was his duty to care for them to the best of his ability. I love my father dearly. It's hard not to love someone who is so caring, of course. But the anything that just made it harder to watch him ruin himself. After all, there is such a thing as being too trusting. My poor father chose to believe in the goddess of every person, but sadly not every person chose to be good. He was taking advantage of his whole life. People knew they could beg for whatever they wanted, and he would give it, if they were convincing enough. People called him the Fool King. It wore him down, day after day. He spent so much money on granting the masses every wish. Every single city, town and village in the empire had clean, paved roads, a generous garrison of well-equipped soldiers for protection, and more. And he barely taxed them. But of course that meant he was constantly draining the royal coffers and borrowing money from other kingdoms. It was impossible for someone to juggle all that forever, trying to find new ways to get money without demanding of the citizens became impossible, and the stress of it all drove him to his deathbed. When I took the throne, I inherited the largest debt any kingdom has ever achieved. A part of me really wanted to just finish the job and let the kingdom fall into ruin, just to spite those greedy beasts. But I couldn't let my father's legacy be destroyed, even if it has actions nearly doomed. My first act was to start declaring war with every single kingdom we owned money to, one at a time. It sounds rash, but those well-equipped soldiers I mentioned, combined with my unusually strong affinity for magic, made it more than possible. Not to mention I was able to repurpose much of the things my father had spent his money on for the War of War. With every victory I brought another kingdom under my rule. The debt was gradually erased, and I gained their riches. I brought all those kingdoms under my rule and formed my empire. After that, I resolved to make the rebel war for my comfort, instead of the other way around. I won't even repeat the mistake of the Fool King of Karen. You know, I'm feeling much better. Once again, you managed to help me without even meaning to. I'm astonished that you can do so much so inadvertently. Just certainly I'm a perfect little helper. What? Nothing else to say? Were you not expecting me to have a reason for what I do? Everyone thinks I was just born this way, don't they? That's why they call me the evil queen. Such a shame. I can tell you still disagree with me, but it seems you're at a loss for how to respond to my story. Well, I'll tell you. Anytime you don't know what to say to me, you can simply bow and say, yes, you're magnificent. You don't need to be clever. You just need to be obedient. Well, since I'm feeling better, why don't we go for a carriage ride? It's such a lovely day out. Well, I don't actually know that. I haven't looked outside. But I can make it a lovely day if isn't that already. The perks of being a sorceress. Come along, little helper.